This is the first part in a series covering inflammation in the body, ways that science suggests that we can reduce it, and my own personal experience of changing my lifestyle to reduce my inflammation levels. What I'm most interested in with this series is giving you simple everyday things that you can do to reduce your inflammation. I'll try to give you various examples of what I've done, but please remember I only ever change one thing at a time in my life. So the key idea for the whole series is small, manageable changes, one at a time. Just over 2 years ago, I caught COVID, and that became long COVID, which then turned into chronic fatigue syndrome and post-exertional malaise. That meant there were weeks that went by where I couldn't be vertical for more than a couple of hours a day. Eventually, after several months, I did manage to recover enough that I could start doing some research into what could actually help me. The evidence suggested I wasn't going to be able to fix my chronic fatigue, but if my body was generally inflamed, then finding and reducing those sources of inflammation might help to reduce the severity of my tiredness and so help me live a more normal life. And it turns out chronic inflammation is actually something that's affecting a lot of other people in the Western world too. Chronic inflammation is associated with various diseases such as hay fever, which I also have, periodontal disease, atherosclerosis and osteoarthritis. So first of all, what is inflammation? Inflammation is a response your immune system makes when it senses harm, such as from a viral infection or if you get hit or injured in some way. If something is inflamed, the key signs of that are that it will get warm, painful, red, swollen, and likely suffer some loss in function. Inflammation is usually a good thing. It's how the body eliminates the initial problem of cell injury. It clears out damaged cells and tissues and starts to repair itself. However, there is a sweet spot to inflammation. If you have too little inflammation, then the body won't repair itself enough. If you have too much inflammation, the immune system responds too strongly to otherwise normal signals or stays activated when it doesn't need to be, and that is termed chronic inflammation. This chronic inflammation is not necessarily visible or intense, but along with the diseases mentioned earlier, can also be associated with pain, fatigue, depression, anxiety and mental disorders, gut issues such as constipation, diarrhea and acid reflux, as well as more frequent infections. Even before I caught long COVID, I was suffering from basically all of that. So I was confident that even if I couldn't cure myself of chronic fatigue, at least reducing inflammation should help me feel better more generally. So inflammation itself isn't bad. The problem is when it stays switched on for too long. This video series is about helping the body calm that response down. So, where to start? You could take an anti-inflammatory medicine like aspirin, naproxen or ibuprofen to reduce inflammation, but that's not intended as anything other than a short-term solution. Take them too often or in too high a dosage and you will start to see bad side effects. You can damage tissues or organs in your bodies and thus make your inflammation worse. As I was chronically inflamed, I figured tackling my lifestyle would be more effective over time. Doing research, getting informed, made me feel both motivated and empowered. Books, podcasts, YouTubes, websites, they all helped. My research turned up 4 areas where I found I could address inflammation: diet, movement, sleep and stress. Let's start with diet. Food is not just for energy, it can also be thought of as medicine too. Everything you put in your body can either help, support or hinder your immune system function. Now, I'll dive more deeply into an anti-inflammatory diet in future videos because it's been a fascinating journey for me to see what really helps. But I'll give you the general principles now and describe what the game changer was for me that helped me stay on the diet. An anti-inflammatory diet is not about restricting portions or calorie counting. Instead, principles are quite easy. It's basically about eating a wide diversity of plants. Fruits and vegetables are the obvious ones, but also herbs, spices, legumes, whole grains like rice or quinoa, and even tea or coffee. And when I say a wide diversity, a good rule of thumb is to aim for 30 or more different plants consumed per week. So for example, you could have a pasta dish and tomato sauce with onions and garlic, and that would count as 4 different plants. Add in a teaspoon each of paprika, basil, oregano, and that count rises to 7. So, why does this work? There are several reasons: an increase in fibre, an increase in polyphenols, and a reduction in food sources that are known to cause inflammation. The increase in dietary fibre leads to an increase in short-chain fatty acids produced by your gut microbiome. Now, short-chain fatty acids are fantastic for us. They directly lead to a stronger gut barrier, so fewer bad toxins, bacteria and infections get into our body. They mainly reduce the inflammatory signals produced in the gut, but they also promote regulatory immune responses, meaning your immune system responds to the things it needs and should respond to, and not acting like it's on a hair trigger. The more fibre you eat, the more short-chain fatty acids your gut produces, and therefore the lower the level of general inflammation your body has. Polyphenols are created by plants that they use in their immune system and signalling. By eating plants, our bodies are able to use those polyphenols to help modify our own immune system signals. They indirectly reduce the inflammatory signals produced in the gut by affecting our gut microbes and cellular pathways. It's just that they do it in the colon rather than in the small intestine, like the short-chain fatty acids produced by fibre digestion. Polyphenols are another way plants help gently guide our immune system towards calm. By increasing the diversity of your plant intake, you will naturally decrease the amount of other things you eat that actually cause inflammation, things like ultra-processed foods or refined carbohydrates like sugar. This increase in plant diversity also means you increase the number of beneficial microbial species in your gut, and that means fewer opportunities for the less helpful species to take up residence there. They're basically starved of the kind of food that makes them grow, so less chance that your body needs to set up an inflammatory response to get rid of them. By adding more plants, you often reduce inflammatory foods automatically, without strict rules, and you don't have to eliminate everything to see benefits either. So, what was the game changer for me? I made one small change, simply swapping my breakfast cereal for a green smoothie. And that's a smoothie where you have a base of green veg, such as spinach or broccoli, and blend it with berries or banana, along with some soy milk. At least I did in my case. I wasn't sure whether I'd like so much green leaves for breakfast, but actually that smoothie turned out to be pretty tasty. And in one simple, small move, I'd reduced the amount of sugar I was taking in each day and vastly increased my fibre and polyphenol intake. I made a promise to myself to try it for a month and just see how things went. Because it was a simple, easy change, I found I could do it throughout most of the week, even if I was having a bad time fatigue-wise. I wasn't looking for perfection, for doing it absolutely every day. I was just looking to do it most of the time. And I did see improvements in my physical and mental ability. They weren't immediate though. I think it was around about 5 weeks or so before I noticed an actual improvement. My brain fog had cleared up enough that I could work on a computer for a few hours each day, and my time spent napping was reduced too. But it's not something I can completely attribute to the smoothie. Because it quickly became a habit, I had started to make other changes to my diet and to my lifestyle. But it is pretty telling for me that I just didn't want to go back to a sugary breakfast in the morning. It definitely helped me kickstart a more healthy outlook to my diet. Maybe you try it in the future and it doesn't work for you. That's okay. We all live different lives and what works for us as individuals will be different. For me, one small sustainable change made it easier to make others later. Once that change was under my belt, I felt more able to start making other changes to further increase my fibre and polyphenol intake throughout the day. I was way more interested in adding things to my diet rather than taking things away. For example, adding herbs and spices to every meal is a really easy way to increase the diversity of your plant intake, and some have particularly strong anti-inflammatory effects like turmeric and black pepper. It's really easy to add a teaspoon of one or many of these to pretty much any meal. And that does include my morning smoothie. Fermented foods. These can be added to meals to improve diversity of gut microbes and hence short-chain fatty acid production, but they also seem to directly affect inflammation levels themselves. It took a little bit of getting used to, but I'm now really enjoying adding kimchi or sauerkraut to a lot of my meals. Legumes include things like green beans, kidney beans, chickpeas and lentils. I had to be careful with this due to suffering from irritable bowel syndrome as well. which may very well have caused at least some of my inflammation in the first place, or the other way around. But by adding a very tiny amount of beans to my meals over a period of months, and only then increasing to a normal portion, it did help to improve my intolerance to them and help my short-chain fatty acid production. I just started with one thing to see how it goes, and only added other changes in progressively when I felt the previous change was sustainable and a habit. This meant I could be proactive in healing myself, but not be overwhelmed with the amount of stuff I had to do. Simply choose what feels easiest for you and see where it takes you, and then maybe add things to it later down the line. I felt a diet change was the best thing for me to start with at the time, but that might not be true for you. There are 3 more videos in this series, and the next one covers movement, so maybe that's better for you. I hope you found this video helpful. Have you found a diet change that worked for you in reducing inflammation and making you feel better? Let us know in the comments. And if you did find the video helpful, please consider liking and subscribing so you get notified when the next video comes out. And that will really encourage me to keep going and do more.